Hello, my friends, and thank you for tuning in. I am Naomi, and I am the host of Weird Mythic Podcast. I appreciate you guys listening again, and I also hope that you guys had a good Valentine's Day last week and had a great weekend. I know I did. A little bit about my weekend. It was very eventful, actually. I went up to my cousin's on last Friday and we went on this big hike on Saturday with a couple friends. So that was awesome. It was my first hike of 2023, and there will be more. That's where I put up on our Instagram that I went Bigfoot hunting, which, I mean, not exactly true. Me and my cousin's husband are both into cryptids, and he's huge into Bigfoot. So we were kind of on the lookout for Bigfoot scat or markings or whatever we could find, but we didn't find much. However, there was plenty of places that I saw where a fairy could definitely live. So I added those to our Instagram. But yeah, besides like going hiking, which I encourage everybody to get out and just, be active in general. But I love going on hikes. So I always encourage everybody to just get out there, go walk around if you got to. It's always good to be out in nature and away from everything. So yeah, that was one cool thing that I got to do this weekend. Something else that I kind of just wanted to point out to people is, you should be nice. Be nice to people because last week, I believe it was on Valentine's Day, actually. So on Valentine's Day, I went into Target after work and I go right over to the liquor aisle. All I wanted was some Jameson. I was like, I got food at home. I just want something to drink. And as I'm over there in their little liquor aisle and I put my hand underneath the little thing so that the employee can come over and open the door so I can get my whiskey. All of a sudden, the employee comes around the corner, right? And she has another woman with her, and she also just needs to get a bottle of Hennessy. And that's right next to the Jameson. So she's like, I just needed the Hennessy right there. I'm like, yeah, and can you grab the Jameson right above it? So the employee grabs both of them. That was all me and this woman were here for. We were each there for our whiskey, and we followed the employee back. Me and her, chit-chatted a little bit along the way, just how you doing? Hope your day's going well. What are you doing tonight? Just, chit-chat. We stand in the same line. She talks to me about her daughter and her husband and her niece, and then I talked about my niece, and I talked about my cat. And as we're getting to the register, the woman looks at the cashier, and those two bottles right there I came to get. And I'm standing there because I could see, no, you just got the one bottle of Hennessy, lady. That's my Jameson. Don't be taking my Jameson. I gotta walk all the way back to go get it. And then I look at her, I was like, no, that's fine. That one's mine. It's okay. And she goes, no, I'm gonna pay for it. And I'm like, no, you do not need to pay for anything at all. And this woman straight up says, no, you were nice and you talked to me. I'm gonna go ahead and buy your Jameson. I must have said thank you a good 20 times. No joke. So now I need to do that to somebody else who is also nice. I haven't paid it forward yet, but I will. But moral of the story, just be nice to people. You never know if somebody's going to buy you a whole bottle of Jameson at the end of just being nice, seeing how people's days are going. Before we get into the show, because we'll be talking more about a fairy today, of course, I kind of want to just bring up some stuff that I like to keep track of. And I know Serena and I did cover a couple of true crime stuff last year, which was always fun. Can't always do it, though, just for my sake. I'm like, I would get so depressed if I kept looking into stuff like that. Love all the true crime podcasts. I mean, come on, that's what I got into. I love True Crime Garage and Small Town Murder are my favorite true crime podcasts. So with that being said, I keep track of a lot of true crime related things going on, and a few things that I found in the news recently was that David Miscavige was finally, and I mean fucking finally, served with human trafficking. He now has a lawsuit against him. Thank you to that Florida judge. And now he has less than 21 days to respond to that lawsuit. So keep an eye on that, guys. I will definitely be probably updating you guys as that goes on, because I'm very interested to see how that fucking goes. Something else that I read up on, the Doomsday couple, fucking Lori Vallow, looks like she is going on trial for murder April 3rd of this year. So I will 100% be paying attention to that insaneness. And something that just came across my newsfeed today. Do you guys remember the girl who disappeared, Madeleine McCann? She was on vacation with her family. I totally drawing a blank right now on which country, so I do apologize. Somewhere in Europe. So she was like taken from the hotel room, right? So there's someone online, Julia Julia. Anyways, she has the same eye condition that Madeline had, and she's claiming that there's a lot of her childhood that she doesn't remember. And the McCann family and this Julia Fastina chick, they're actually willing to do a DNA test to see if that's Madeleine McCann. Or Madeleine McCann. So that's really freaking interesting. I've been following that for a long time, and I haven't seen anything come out. A lot of the true crime stuff that I do pay attention to, like, we'll take Lori Vallow, for instance. She definitely murdered her children. I don't have a fucking doubt about that. But the McCann family, I don't know what to believe, and it's all just very strange, and I don't know. Just strange is the only word I could come up with. All right, guys, let's get into Weird Mythic Podcast. This will be the third fairies episode for our fairy series, if you will. As I was doing research on this specific fairy, I kept coming across the Menehune. And if you don't remember, Serena's already covered the Menehune in our Urban Legends episode in Hawaii. And these Menehune are about 6 inches to 2 feet tall. They build a lot of sacred places on the Hawaiian Islands. They also live in the forest. And there is so much more that the Menehune do. But the fairies that I'm going to be talking about are not the fairies that I'm going to be talking about, of course, are not the Menehune. But there was lots of similarities to the Menehune with these fairies. Another thing that kept coming up, or another fairy that kept coming up, were the brownies in Ireland and Scotland. And go listen to that episode. It's on one of our cryptid episodes for the brownies. And those are the ones that kind of like to help you around the house, but gotta be nice, because don't take advantage of them. Otherwise, they'll destroy your house. So, well, why don't you say we just get into it? We will be talking about the Yunwi Tsusdi. Yunwi Tsusdi. Now, this is a fairy that comes from Cherokee tradition and stories. And Yunwi Tsusdi translates to the little people. And I do apologize if I mispronounce that. I think I'm just going to be saying Yunwi moving forward to make it easier on myself. So the Yunwi Tsusdi translates to the little people in Cherokee tradition. The Cherokee, just to give some geographic information here, they are from the Tennessee, North Carolina, and Georgia area of the lower 48 states. The Yunwi Tsusdi, what do they look like? They are a small humanoid nature spirit. They are only about knee high. All of the descriptions I came across were only about 2 feet, and then a lot of them were like they were no bigger than your knee. So they're about knee high. They are invisible. However, they can show themselves to you when they want to. It's not like they're constantly invisible. It's more like whenever they kind of choose to be. However, the Cherokee always say that the Yunwi Tsusdi look like Cherokee. They also spoke or speak the Cherokee language. So as I kept reading stuff on that, I couldn't decide if the Yunwi Tsusdi were either mimicking the Cherokee or if they really are probably part of the Cherokee tribe, if not part of their like ancestry. The Yunwi Tsusdi, Their hair is always described as being very long, and most of the time, like when it's long, they say that it touches the ground. So these are knee-high people with extremely long hair to the ground. In one of the articles I read, that the Yunwi Tsusdi, they were white or black, or they were gold skin toned color. Again, a lot of it was saying that they look like the Cherokee. I'm going to say the Cherokee could probably be all three of those colors, depending on how tan they are and what time of year it is. So they look like us. The Yunwi Tsusdi also live in the forest and the mountains, but a very remote area, and it's possible that they have underground homes and cities. As I mentioned, the brownings kept coming up in this research, and like the brownies, the Yunwi Tsusdi, they like to help people. Now, how do they help people, you ask? They will help those lost in the forest or the mountains, and they will make sure to get them out to safety. They are known to help the Cherokee in times of war also, and they would help fight against the Cherokee enemies. Goes back to the whole they are more than likely probably part of the Cherokee tribe and part of their heritage. And we all know that, fairies have a different type of rules or different type of laws that they abide to compared to us, right? So there's a lot of do's and don'ts that go into all fairy races. And with the Yunwi Tsusdi, some things to definitely not do. I heard a lot of stories of people up in the mountains and they would be hearing drums in the distance. And that kind of piques a lot of people's interest. So they would walk towards the drums. It is highly recommended that you do not walk towards these drums in the middle of the mountains. It is warned that they will end up very bad for you. I never got a specific thing that would be done to you if you followed those drums. The only thing I did find was that the drums also seem to be continuing to get away from you. So even though you're hiking up, they've got to be up here around the bend. Nope, they just seem like they get farther away. So don't follow those drums in random woods, guys. They do possess magic. However, they don't always use it unless it is to hurt somebody. Because if you disrespect the Yunwi Tsusdi or you disrespect nature, that is when they decide to use their magic against you. Remember, they do like to help people, especially those lost in the forest. However, if you are helped by a Yunwi Tsusdi and they get you out of the forest, and then you go around to all your friends and family and coworkers saying, I saw the Yunwi Tsusdi, they helped me out of the forest, you might die. I don't know how else to say it. Don't brag about it. Apparently, you're not supposed to be telling people about them. It's kind of like that thing where everybody knows they're there, but you don't talk about it because something bad might happen to you. So if you are helped by the Yunwi Tsusdi, just be humble. Be thankful. Just keep it to yourself. Another thing that you should never do if you know you're somewhere where the Yunwi Tsusdi are is to not block their walking paths. If you see a path in the woods or something and you put something there and block it, that means they're going to have to make a whole other path. And that's just fucking rude. Don't do that. They're hardly 2 feet tall. But what that also means is if you have a Yunwi Tsusdi in your area and you block their path, that means they might not help you because you just blocked their path getting to you or something along the lines of that. So just don't block their path and be respectful to their surroundings and yours. You're out in nature. You shouldn't be blocking things anyways. Help them out. Something that you should do if you want to attract the Yunwi Tsusdi into your home or your property or for some sort of protection, all you got to do is leave them an offering. Mainly food. Food is a huge motivator for most fairies, especially if it's something sweet. As soon as you kind of offer it there and you just, kind of leave it there like you would the brownies, they'll end up helping you around the home or the property, or they'll just keep watch over you as for safety. So, don't forget, that fairies like to be mischievous, and the Yunwi Tsusdi are no exception to this rule. They are malicious, but it's honestly all out of fun. They never would do anything to purposefully hurt somebody or put somebody in danger. So if you feel like, hey, that item was moved from this part of the property or this part of the house to another part and it don't hurt nobody, it's probably the Yunwi Tsusdi just playing a prank on you. So appreciate it and laugh. Say thanks. That was funny. Something that I read up on for the Yunwi Tsusdi. Like I said, it is from Cherokee stories and heritage and mythos. And my favorite story that I came across was back in 1838 when the Cherokee were forced to go onto the Trail of Tears going to Oklahoma, the forced migration. The Yunwi Tsusdi were there with them. And not only were they still there with them, but they kept a fire constantly going for the Cherokee people. They never, not once, let that flame go out. That was during wind and rain and all other kinds of storms. Can you imagine fucking walking from Tennessee all the way to Oklahoma on foot? Yeah. Forced. Ridiculous. They still kept the tradition of the Yunwi Tsusdi alive. And that story of them not letting the flame goes out speaks so much on the spirit that they had doing that horrible forced migration all the way to Oklahoma. And I just think it's great that they kept them in that tradition throughout all of that. But come on, that's pretty fucking cool that they went with them. These little 2 foot, 3 foot spirit nature beings always had this fire going. Fire has been a constant image in a lot of the fairies that like to help people. They like to give humans warmth and fire. So, the Yunwi Tsusdi, I think, is kind of a general term. It does translate to the little people, but the Cherokee actually have 3 different groups of fairies that is in their tradition. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about all 3 of them. The first, they are called the Laurels. They are friendly but mischievous. They are known to be very childish. They always have joy and they like to share that joy with others. And I read a few times that if you hear a child laughing in their sleep, that is a sign that the Laurels are at work. Yes, at work. I'm just assuming this means that they're playing with the kid, which kind of creeps me out. But then I've also, I grew up with a lot of Catholics around me and in my family. And something that was always said was when you hear a child like laughing or if they're smiling in their sleep, then that means that the angels are talking to them. And that's really what it reminded me of. I was like, I love that. It's the fairies hanging out with the kids, giving them good dreams. The other race of fairies of the Yunwi Tsusdi are the rocks. Yeah. You kind of know that, yeah, they're malicious. They're not that nice at all. They're more of the mean ones. They are very territorial. They've been known to try and steal your children, so definitely not like the Laurels. They've also been known to just basically throw rocks at people, so I'd stay clear of them. The third race of Yunwi Tsusdi, they are called the Dogwood people. Now, they are very nice and kind. They do like to help humans, and they will. They kind of reminded me of the Aziza from the last episode. Everything that the Dogwood people do is out of the goodness of their heart, and they don't do anything for personal gain. Well, let's go ahead and get into some stories, yeah? Like, gotta look up some real life stories at this point, okay? So, one thing I did find was a YouTube video, and in this video, it is a descendant of the Cherokee tribe, and he starts by describing the Yunwi Tsusdi as leprechaun type people. However, he has not ever seen any. This is all through tradition and stories that were told by him as a child. He starts by quoting an elder of the Cherokee tribe, and this elder describes the little people as, quote, "This is what the old men told me as a boy. I not know the truth to be may, be but I tell the tale that was told to me." Yeah, a little weird there, right? So just to clarify what he said, pretty much obviously not everybody in the Cherokee tribe have seen an Yunwi Tsusdi. And just by saying, "This is what the old men told me as a boy," this is showing how often this story is told to the Cherokee children. Just keep that tradition alive. I fucking love it. So this man was told as a boy that the little people predate the Cherokee tribe, that they are known to be shy and usually come out at night, and they make their homes in rocks and caves and mountains. This Cherokee man was told as a little boy that the little people, the Yunwi Tsusdi, actually predate the Cherokee people, that they are known to be shy and usually come out at night because they're shy, and they were also known as the moon people at one point. They always make their homes out of rock caves and mountains. He also said that some of the little people had very long hair to the ground. That goes back to me reading all those articles about having very long hair. Something else that he mentioned, which was something I've also mentioned here, was that they have hair all the way down to the ground. So this is very much reiterated in all stories, how long their hair was. And he actually kind of gave a little bit of insight on the laurels in this YouTube video. And he was saying that it's the laurels who make those drum sounds in the mountains. So even though the laurels are kind, you might not want to follow those drums. He even said that some of the younger Cherokees were always encouraged to go look for the little people. And usually if a young Cherokee did see any of the Yunwi Tsusdi, that meant that he probably had something good to bring to the tribe, like a medicine man type of role. He reiterated that it is not safe to search for the drums that are heard in the mountains. He does mention that the rocks are the only ones that use magic against humans. So I love the fact that he kind of reiterated stuff that I read, like these are the laurels and this is what they do. This is the rocks and this is what they do. I was like, cool. All right. My research was pretty good. Something else this man mentioned that I didn't read anywhere else, but I thought was very important to note, was that if you happen to find something in the forest and this thing is like useful, like some sort of stick or shovel or something that can just help you in the forest that is also natural, and you decide to use it for whatever purpose you want to use it for, that you better say thank you, and you better say it out loud so the Yunwi Tsusdi can hear you. You better say it before you take it also. Because if you just take it and you're like, oh, this is a great walking stick, and you don't say thank you, guess what's going to start throwing rocks at you? Yeah, the rocks. A story that this Cherokee elder talked about in this YouTube video was about a man, and this was after the Civil War. This man got really sick and wandered into the woods where no one could find him. And then a few weeks later, he just comes out of the woods. So this guy is like, I was helped. I was nursed back to health by these little people. And then they brought me back here. I feel better. So I know it's a short story, but I know you're not supposed to talk about the little people because you might die. But I feel like in this instance, it's like he was at war. He got sick. Let's nurse him back to health. Let's not mention anything about us being the Yunwi Tsusdi. And there's nothing in that story saying that the sick man was Cherokee, so they probably cut him some slack. But he did say that the little people in the mountains did heal him. Another story was of a man who was out of town, and his friend just came by his house to say hi, but he didn't know that he was out of town, right? So his friend shows up to the house, realizes he's not home, and then of course leaves because his buddy ain't there, right? But about a week later, the friend who was gone gets in contact with a friend who showed up at his house randomly and told him, hey, I'm sorry I was out of town last week when you showed up. Let's hang out or something. So they hang out, and the friend was a little confused because he didn't tell his friend that he stopped by his house when he was out of town. He didn't really even say anything to anybody. He just left, his buddy wasn't there, so he left. So he asked him, he's like, how did you even know I came by your house? So the man that owned the house, of course, said, and I quote, oh, the little people watch over the property when I'm gone. They let me know that your car came by, unquote. He apparently also described what his friend was wearing that day. Kind of freaked his buddy out. But apparently the little people will keep over somebody's house. Mainly the Cherokee will watch over their house. So just more stories of them just kind of chilling and watching over things, right? There is also this mention of a construction site in Western Carolina University. I don't have a date, but I believe it was back in like the 60s or 70s, just based off of the little video that I saw in this YouTube video. Anyways, there's this construction site at Western Carolina University where they found skeletal remains of little people. And not only did they just find these skeletal remains, but they found tunnels also that had even more little skeletal remains. So after seeing that on the YouTube video, and there were a few other articles that I read that kept mentioning these skeletons, I had to keep kind of looking into it, so trust me, I'm gonna circle back around to these skeletal remains. All right. So there was this article that came out in 1976 in the Oklahoma Today magazine, and it was mainly about little people. And even though it didn't go into detail about the little people, it was really about this picture that was in this article. And in this picture is a Choctaw man. And this man, his name is Uncle Billy. And he really wanted his portrait, his picture taken in Ardmore, Oklahoma. Now, in this picture that is in this magazine, there's Uncle Billy. And he's in, kind of Western wear. And there's a small table that's next to him. And this table probably only goes up to his hip area, or between his knee and his hip. And there's this weird, I don't want to say weird. Weird's the wrong word to say. But there is this small creature that is on top of this table. And even this creature on top of the table isn't very big. It only looks about a foot high at the most. This picture is proof to the Choctaw tribe of the little people. Because when that picture was taken, there was nothing on that table. And even after the picture was taken, there is still nothing on this table. So they didn't see this little creature on the table until after the picture was developed. It's pretty hardcore evidence that there's some type of creature that is dedicated to this Indian tribe or this Indian family. And going back to that invisible thing, they make themselves known when they want to be known. All right. So let's get back to those skeletal remains, yeah? My God, I ran across multiple stories of pygmies in North America. Something funny about pygmies. I took this physical anthropology class at Butte College, and this was years ago, 2012, maybe, I don't know. But anyways, took this class, fucking loved this class, by the way. The professor was awesome. And as we're in this first day of physical anthropology class, he straight up says, we will not be discussing giants or pygmies. They are an anomaly. So he did not want to discuss them in our anthropology class because they're an anomaly. So just something to keep in mind, okay? First off, I didn't even know that there was possible pygmies in North America. It never even fucking crossed my mind. And as I'm doing research on the Yunwi Tsusdi and I'm finding more articles about Pygmy tribes in North America, I had to go down that rabbit hole. So, something about the Pygmy people in North America. Did come across that the Cheyenne tribe, which comes out of like the Great Lakes, Minnesota area, that they called the little people knee-high demons. The Shoshone tribe in the Rocky Mountains, I should have looked up how to pronounce this, but it's Naim Rigar. They were known to call the little people the people eater. So these little people that eat people. There were also reports of mummies found in 1932 in North America, and these mummies were only about 15 inches tall with long white hair. Not only did they just have long white hair, but they also had adult body hair. Pubes. Hello. And they also had full sets of teeth. So that kind of debunks the whole thing of if they were children or if they had some sort of dwarfism. Those mummies, by the way, came out of Ohio. Another thing about Ohio, specifically about pygmies, that in the 1830s, there was a cemetery uncovered. And this cemetery only had pygmy skeletal remains. The local Indians in this area knew about the pygmies, so they didn't really think much of it when this cemetery was uncovered, except like, hey, show some fucking respect. So these skeletons that were found in the 1830s in Ohio were only about 3.5 to 4 feet in height. Never got a number of bodies that were found in this cemetery, but there were some articles that said thousands of bodies. And all of the skeleton heads were facing west. So this is definitely done on purpose. I don't think it was just like one mass grave or one area that they kept dumping bodies, considering that there was also wood pieces and wood fragments. So it does kind of look like they were placed there on purpose and all facing west. I love the fact that there were pygmies in North America. And one of the main articles that I got that from, I will 100% post onto our Instagram. I know I suck when I say that. However, I now know how to use Google Docs to remind me to do things. But yeah, pygmies in Ohio, 1830s. Look it up. It's fucking wild, man. And there's going to be a lot of articles saying that there was a deformity, that they weren't actually adult. However, I saw a lot of articles saying that these had wisdom teeth, which you only get wisdom teeth once you're, certain age. If not older, you don't get them as a child. So I hope you guys, had fun with that. Hopefully that piqued your interest. So back to the Yunwi Tsusdi. A few things that all these fairies have in common was that they live in the forest, basically always out in nature. They're always about 2 to 4 inches or 2 to 4 feet in height. And they look like us, or at least they look like the Cherokee tribe. They always have the long hair down to the ground. Something that I kept thinking of though is like, there's these 3 specific Yunwi Tsusdi. What were the Cherokee people trying to describe to either their children or about people in general? Just kind of some food for thought, okay? So you guys gotta tell me what you think about those pygmies. You guys gotta tell me what you think about the Yunwi Tsusdi and how they are like some of the other fairies that we've already covered. Please tell me what you think in the comments below. You could also go to all of our social media. Weird Mythic Podcast on Twitter, Weird Mythic Podcast on Instagram, which also has our link tree that goes to all of our websites and our merch store. Go to our YouTube at Weird Mythic Podcast, and please send me a story, send me an encounter, or just any suggestion on the show. Send it to weirdmythicpodcast@gmail.com. Man, I cannot believe this is episode 51. And I cannot thank you guys enough for all the support, just everything. Just keep listening. tell people. Serena, I fucking miss you. Keep listening, guys. Keep tuning in. And I'll come back next week with another fairy episode. See ya.